Where we going, dude? I'm excited for this vlog.
Dude, I'm not gonna spoil the surprise, dude.
I like it.
Just follow me, okay? Yeah, you're gonna love it. Laidlaw here, coming to you from the oldest, largest, and finest Harley-Davidson dealership in the greater Los Angeles area, Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. So today I'm going to be doing a review and a test ride on the brand new 48 Special. This is one of two brand new bikes that Harley-Davidson just released, both in the Sportster family. The other one being the Iron 1200, which I put out a video on about a week ago. So I'm going to take out this bike with Andrew, and we're also going to take out one of the regular 48s. So we're going to kind of compare this 48 Special and show you guys the differences between the new 48 Special and the regular 48. So let me dive into this 48 Special here for you. So a little bit of background first. The 48 was first introduced in the 2010 model year. I believe it was a mid-model year release that year. And it has been one of the best-selling Sportsters in the Harley-Davidson lineup ever since. It's sold so good, it's been so popular that Harley-Davidson has now come out with a second version of it, which gives us now the 48 Special. So a couple things about the 48. It gets its name as kind of a reference to a 1948 S125 that was a bike back in 1948 that had a similar shaped peanut fuel tank, and that bike was better known as a Hummer back then, but that's where it gets its name, is from that bike in 1948, the S125. So the 48 Special, Harley-Davidson I think just decides to throw the name Special onto the end of any given model just to insinuate that it's a different version of that model and it's a little bit more special, I guess. So basically, in a nutshell, to get a 48 Special, you take a regular 48 and you put an AMF inspired 70s graphics on the fuel tank, a few different finishes on your heat shields, your engine casings, your rocker boxes, your primary drive, and change out the handlebars to a tallboy handlebar, and you got yourself a 48 Special. So the pricing isn't any different, which can't be said for the Iron 1200. On the Iron 1200 you pay $1,000 more for that bike, but you're also getting a displacement bump. So really on the 48, between a 48 and a 48 Special, really all you're deciding on is what style you prefer. Because mechanically there is no difference. There's a slight ergonomics difference with the handlebars. A guy my height, I'm 6'6", I much prefer the 48 Special with the taller handlebar. So as far as the paint goes, this is kind of a cool move by Harley-Davidson. I really like the paint. Just a quick history, and if you want to see a deeper history on this, watch my Iron 1200 video. But basically the AMF days were in 1969. Harley-Davidson was in financial ruin. They needed a way out. They sold out to a company called AMF, American Machining Foundry. And during those years, they're kind of referred to as the dark ages of Harley-Davidson. AMF at the time was kind of known for its sporting goods manufacturing, like specifically like bowling equipment and things like that. They got into other things like snowmobiles branded with Harley-Davidson and golf carts branded with Harley-Davidson. And so those years just weren't Harley-Davidson's best years. They've kind of been plagued, and there's a stigma surrounding them around poor quality control on the bike. So in the early 80s, Willie G. Davidson and a few other investors bought back Harley-Davidson. The phrase was coined, "The Eagle soars alone," and it then became back under private ownership, and then
headed up by Willie G. They came out with some great bikes like the FXR series that blew up, and Harley-Davidson is now better than they've ever been. So yeah, kind of a cool story. But back to the bike. So you've got Harley-Davidson's Premium Ride coilover gas emulsion shocks here. They are adjustable. You can adjust the preload. This does not raise or lower the height of the bike. I get asked that all the time. No, if you need the bike to get lowered to the ground, you cannot do that by tightening up the preload. Anyways, these shocks are an upgrade as of the 2016 model year. Prior to that, the suspension was not as good on these bikes, so they have improved that quite a bit. So this is a bobber style bike, guys. You've got a chopped rear fender, side mount license plate with the light there. No real big tail light per se, you just got the two turn signals back there. Here's a shot of the same shock on the left hand side. And here's a shot of the primary drive. So you've got a chrome primary drive. On the regular 48, that's all wrinkle black, that textured black there. And here's a shot of the taller handlebars. So this is a part that's been available for a while now in the parts and accessory catalog, but it's now OEM on the 48 Special, so a little bit taller bar there. Here's the ignition on the right. Once the ignition is on, you've got your little lights there that display your neutral indicator. This button here that I'm pressing with my left thumb, that's going to cycle your digital display between your trip A. You've got a trip B, hold it down to zero out your trip meters, your clock. You have a gear and RPM digital readout as well. That's where I typically keep it when I'm riding the bikes, because I like to see what my RPM is at. And the mirrors are on top on this as well. That's something I didn't point out on my when the bike was first released. I did a video, but the mirrors are right side up, which is kind of funny because, you know, the mirrors flipped upside down on this bike would work better than the mirrors flipped upside down on the regular 48. The viewing angle, I will say, after riding this bike is a lot better than the regular 48. Again, part of that is because I'm tall, but you know, when the mirrors are upside down like that, the viewing angle isn't as good. Here's the fork lock here. So you turn the bars to the left, put the key in. It's a little bit more difficult with one hand, but you put it in, turn it about a quarter turn, and now you've locked your forks. So there's that. And this bike, the Sportster family, they are one of the only families in the Harley-Davidson world to require the key in the ignition. I will say, if you get the security for these bikes, it's $395. You do not need to put the key in the ignition anymore. In fact, there is no key ignition on the bike. It removes it completely if you buy this bike with the security fob. The security fob is a proximity sensor. Here's a shot of the regular 48. You can see the bars there. It's a smaller rise. And the graphics on the regular 48 are also kind of a throwback retro style as well. I believe those actually can be traced back to the 70s and 80s as well. There's a shot of the primary. You can see that on the primary it's wrinkle black. The rocker box cover is a little bit different as well. The top rocker box cover on the 48 Special are black. You can see here on this 48 there's just a raw aluminum. The lighting is all the same on both of these bikes. The seats are the same. You can see that side case cover on this bike is the textured wrinkle black, as they call it. And on the 48 Special it's chrome. So I'll point out to the rocker box covers there. See, on the top are wrinkle black. The side case covers are chrome. And you can see there the bottom rocker box cover on the left side is chrome. So you got kind of that mismatch there. That kind of gives it a contrast. Harley's doing that more, I've noticed, in recent years, where they make the two rocker box covers a different finish to kind of give it a cool look. Here's another slight difference. You see the slotted heat shields on the regular 48. They're just solid on the 48 Special. Again, kind of subtle, but it's a difference nonetheless. And that's pretty much all the differences, guys. I pointed out everything. So here's again a shot of the chrome primary drive on the 48 Special, and then wrinkle black on the regular 48. So that's literally everything I just pointed out that makes up the differences between these two motorcycles. They've both got forward controls. I've said this in my past videos, but I'll say it again. My personal opinion is if you're 5'8" approximately or shorter, then the forward controls might be a little bit of a reach for you. Really, I feel like the forward controls fit guys that are 5'8" and above the best. But the chrome definitely goes best with kind of the theme of this bike, the 70s theme of the AMF days. So I think that's kind of why they went with the chrome covers on this thing. I'm gonna fire it up for you here. Alright, so I'm going to go over to Harley-Davidson.com. I really like their website. They have some good information on here. So, 2018 48 Special, a new school twist on the choice ride for those who know how to have fun. I love it. Alright, here's some really nice photography. Some shots of the bike here. Shot of one of the 3 color schemes. The seat on this bike has been the same since 2016. Prior to 2016, the seat on the 48 was the worst seat that came on any factory Harley-Davidson. It was like a little rock. But it's very low profile, which I guess went along with the scheme and the style of the 48. So here's a couple of things that Harley-Davidson points out. 1200 Evolution engine, the other one being an 883 that's offered on other models, not the 48 of course. But the Evolution engine, guys, it's just a great, like, old school, stereotypical Harley engine. Very mechanical. This thing is bulletproof, very rudimentary in its engineering. Put oil in it, put gas in it, and run it. I mean, this thing can take a beating and keep going. It's plenty of vibration in there, but it is rubber mounted. It's not like the old hard mounted bikes back prior to 2000. I think 2002 or 2003, Harley-Davidson went to a rubber mounted engine. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about, you know, your teeth being rattled out, but it's just a really good, the character of this engine is really good, and it's what people expect of a Harley-Davidson. So if you're one of these guys that likes to tinker and likes kind of a bobber, real mechanical Harley-Davidson that's unmistakable Harley-Davidson, then this engine is a great one for you. Dark custom styling, excuse me. So yeah, they just put some black parts on there basically. Throwback 70s custom tank art. I really like it a lot. The AMF days are kind of in style, believe it or not, as bad as they were. The AMF styling and paint schemes are real hot right now, so I'm glad to see Harley-Davidson bringing some of those back. Tallboy handlebars. Tallboy is kind of it's a registered description or branding of a parts and accessory bar that Harley-Davidson has offered for a while. Of course, the shocks that I pointed out earlier. So let's jump into the colors here, guys. So here are the 3 available colors. First one you've got is the Vivid Black, which is the color I'm using in this video. Second one is the Wicked Red. And I'll like to point out again that on the 48s, the fenders, the front and rear fenders are always black. The only thing that you're changing is just the tank. So you got the Wicked Red here. This is probably my least favorite of the 3, although I'm always a fan of red on black. And the third and final one is called Billiard White. Kind of reminds you of the cue ball playing pool. I guess that's what they were going for by using the name Billiard. So those are the three colors: Billiard White, Wicked Red, and your Vivid Black. So let me give you guys my take on the 48 Special. So the 48 Special is on the Sportster chassis in the Sportster family. And I bring that up first off because if you know about the Sportster and its advantages and limitations, then you will know a lot about the 48 Special just by knowing about the Sportster and what makes it up. So the Sportster, for the longest time, up until the 2015 model year when the Street came out, the Sportsters were the lightest, smallest chassis that Harley-Davidson made. So the Streets, when they came out, they were now the lightweight leader, and they are a little under 500 pounds. Sportsters are around 600 pounds or less, and so they're still a relatively light bike when you consider cruiser motorcycles. And I'm going to get the hater out there that says they're still heavy and that sport bikes are lighter. I'm talking about cruiser motorcycles here. They are lighter than most cruisers out there. So what I would say to people that are thinking about getting a Sportster is I would say that you've got to be realistic about your riding habits, where you plan on riding, the types of rides you plan on going on these bikes. So Sportsters, generally speaking, aren't good long distance bikes, and here's why. So they have limitations. So they are a 5-speed transmission as opposed to a 6-speed transmission. So when you get up to 65-70 miles an hour on the freeway, they will do it, but you're just buzzing the engine at a higher RPM, so there's a little bit more vibration. You don't really have that calm, relaxed, smooth, low RPM that people enjoy in a cruiser motorcycle out on the freeway. So there's that. Now, this bike has terrible fuel capacity as well. There's a 2.1 gallon tank. Harley-Davidson did not build this bike to be a long distance, go up the coast of California type of a bike. So again, one more thing to kind of make it a local, around town bike. So if your world and kind of where you need transportation to is within about a 100-mile radius, then it's going to be fine. But you know, at 2.1 gallons, I mean, you're going to fill up about every 80 miles is where you're going to be filling up. Now, could it go further than that? Sure, under riding conditions, and if you run the tank completely out of gas, it could. But let's be honest, you don't run the tank completely out. So about 80 miles before you run out of fuel on this thing, before you want to start thinking about going and fueling up again. So the 48 Special, like I said earlier, it's pretty much just a variation of the current 48, with the exception of the bars. The bars is only the real, like, functional piece that's a little bit different. You know, the rest is just cosmetics. And you know, I like the taller bars just because I'm, you know, a taller guy. You really don't have to be tall to use these bars, though. I mean, there's only a difference of about 5 or 6 inches of where your hands are positioned at, if that. So, you know, anybody who likes a taller bar just for the style can go with the 48 Special. As far as Sportsters go, though, I'll point out a couple things that make the 48 a little bit unique. So the 48 has a real chunky, meaty front tire on there. I've always been a fan of a little bit wider tires. That's why I've always been a fan of the Fat Bob over the years, not just the new 2018, but the old Fat Bobs as well. I just like the way that it soaks up the road better with the fat front tire, and I just like that aggressive, like muscly front end look as well on the 48. So I like the fat front tire on there. You know, that's one reason why I like the 1200 Custom as well, is you've got that wider, fatter front tire on there. Now, a lot of people will argue with me and they say they like the narrower front tire, like on an iron. I feel like that's the more popular, trendy style right now, is that narrower front tire. But yeah, it just seems like a lot of my customers in Southern California, the fat, wider front tires aren't as popular, and that's fine. Although I will say that the 48 is definitely a popular bike. We sell a lot of these motorcycles. So who would I recommend the 48 and other Sportsters to? Really, there's two types of riders that I would recommend a Sportster to. One, someone who is new to the Harley-Davidson world. Maybe they're a younger person, maybe they're not younger, but they're new to the Harley world. They don't really have the skills or the desire or really the comfort to go and start doing longer trips, like overnighter trips. They want to just stay local. They want to ride down to the local restaurant or whatever. They don't want to break the bank on a huge price tag motorcycle either. So someone who is just kind of breaking into the Harley-Davidson world, I do feel like to a certain degree the Sportsters are an entry-level type motorcycle, but at the same time they don't have to be. I mean, a bike like a Roadster, I'd say someone with advanced riding skills is the only type of person that would appreciate a bike like the Roadster. Now, a 48 also, what you're going to get out of it is a lot of the things that people love about Harley-Davidson. So you're definitely going to get the feel and the character, the heart and soul of a Harley-Davidson, that mechanical, air-cooled engine, the sound. This Evolution 1200 is iconic Harley-Davidson. If you hook up like a custom exhaust system of these Sportsters, I mean, these things sound real mean and real aggressive. I mean, I would almost say that they sound more aggressive than really they ought to sound, which is cool. I mean, these things, they sound good. There's a ton of parts available for Sportsters as well. So that's another aspect of Harley ownership that Harleys do better than any motorcycle in the world, is your availability of parts to customize these things. Everything from bars, wheels, exhaust, mirrors, pegs. I mean, everything. The sky's the limit with these things. So that is it's a fun aspect of owning a Harley, is really making the bike your own. So the look, the feel, the sound, the customization opportunities, those are all, I would say 10 out of 10 as far as the Sportster and the 48s go. So also your agility and the quickness of these bikes. They're easy to handle, they're easy to maneuver, they're really good to get around traffic, as we're going to demonstrate in a minute here. So it's a good just get around town bike. If you're not going to be doing a ton of freeway stuff and doing 65, 70 miles an hour for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, then it's a great bike. Me personally, I want to say probably about 80 to 90% of the miles I put on my bike are on the freeway doing 65 miles an hour plus. So a Sportster just doesn't do it for me at all. The other thing too is if you're just large in stature, I'm 6'6" tall, and so my frame just doesn't fit well on the bike either. And so for that reason, I have a street glide. So the other person I would recommend the Sportsters and the 48s to is, maybe you are an experienced rider. Maybe you have been riding bikes for a long time, but you want maybe a second bike, or maybe it's your primary bike. But like I said, you don't really plan on using your motorcycle for long duration, high speed riding. maybe it's maybe you live in a densely populated urban area and you just need a get around town bike. Or you know what, maybe you live in a rural area where the roads are really good. I know some states the roads are really good. In Southern California, the roads are terrible. And so, the suspension, especially at higher speeds, it doesn't have the travel, and it's just not plush enough at high speeds on the road, which is another factor that makes this bike not the best high speed distance bike as well. But I've been to places like Arizona. A lot of Arizona is newer, and the roads are really good down there.
All right, so just got off the 48 Special for the first time, and as you might imagine, there's really not a whole lot of differences as far as the ride goes between that and the regular 48. So, as far as the handling, the suspension, the overall ride, it's about the same as a 48. So really my recommendation would be, if you're looking for a around town, kind of a meaty, aggressive bike, the 48's a fun bike, a quick little nimble bike to get around town and everything on. But I just had someone come in today and ask me the same old Sportster question: is this a bike that I'm going to want to sell and trade up pretty soon? And really my response to that has always been, it depends on the type of riding you're going to do. You got to be real honest with yourself about what type of riding you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing freeway, long distance riding, then this bike is not going to be good for you. You're going to be stopping every 80 miles an hour, or excuse me, 80 miles, filling up with gas. And the Sportster chassis out on the freeway, it'll do it just fine. There's plenty of people that have ridden across the country in their Sportsters, but there's just better options for that type of riding in the Harley-Davidson lineup. So yeah, great around town bike. The other question I get asked a lot is if this is a beginner bike. And yeah, it can be a beginner bike. I would usually recommend to have a little bit of riding experience before you get on this bike as a beginner bike. Maybe if you have a little bit of dirt bike riding background, this would be a good first street bike. But the other thing I kind of noticed on this bike that was kind of an unforeseen thing is the mirrors. After riding the Special and then getting on the regular 48, I went to look behind me, and the viewing angle is not nearly as good on the regular 48 because the mirrors are tucked up underneath the bars. But that was the only real big difference I felt. And the bars for me, at my height, I prefer the bars on the 48 Special. I really like the retro AMF styling on the bike as well, so if I had to choose between one or the other, I'd probably go with the Special. But they're pretty close. But let's have Andrew weigh in now. So you had to get one. Which would you choose? And I know you've owned one before.
Yeah, I'd go with a Special out of the two here. The ergonomics of the bars fit better. The only thing I didn't like about either one of the bikes is the seat. Kind of wish they would have changed the seat. Same seat that's on the Iron 1200. If they would have put that on the 48 Special, that would have been pretty cool.
What is it you like about that seat better?
I feel more planted in that seat, and the styling of the seat with the diamond stitch on the Iron 1200 looks a little cooler in my opinion. But yeah, on the 48 Special, the bars they fit better. I mean, it's essentially the same bike. It's just I like the paint on the 48 Special as well. But yeah, other than that, I mean.
So what was it about the 48 that made you buy a 48 initially, and then what was it about it that made you get rid of it and move up to something bigger?
I got a 48. I like the look of the fat tire. I like the small tank, the look of a small tank, and it was just a cool secondary bike. It wasn't my primary bike, so I knew it was.
What was your primary bike at the time?
KTM 1290 Super Duke, and I had 1448, and yeah, I had a couple of buddies with Nightsters and Dyna Street Bobs, so got myself 48, rode around with them, and little by little we were doing longer trips, and yeah, the smaller tank didn't cut it for me, so yeah, got about 75 miles of a tank. That sounds great. It looks cool. But
How do you like the styling of the tank and everything?
I love the way this bike looks. The bike sits really cool. I love the tire, the bigger front tire. I like the small tank. I love the way it looks. Like I said, it looks great.
And between the regular 48 and the 48 Special, the graphics on the tank, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the Special?
Yeah, I do. I like the throwback to the AMF days. It's pretty cool. I like the chrome bottom end of the engine too. It's a little different.
Yeah, I think the chrome kind of suits this style and this era that this bike goes for a little bit more than the black, but I like the black. I don't know, I'm kind of more of a blacked out guy right now, but the combination of the tank and the AMF style with the chrome, it's appropriate, I think, for the style they're going for.